Yo, what's up, Eagles Nation? What's up, Sports Nation? It's your boy, Cool Eagle, back here in another video. Just want to come talk to you guys because, whoa, do we have a lot to talk about today in the world of sports? After a really good weekend of NFL football, if you've been catching up with it, obviously we can talk about the upset at home versus the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders, and that talk about Antonio Pierce becoming a head coach. Now they still have a lot of flaws, but obviously when you're talking about a team that just lost their franchise quarterback in Derek Carr to New Orleans, and then you're talking about an interim head coach, there's not a lot to expect. But obviously, now we can talk about the Bills nearly escaping the Los Angeles Chargers, led by rookie quarterback Easton Stick. And then, of course, today we got the Eagles beating the Giants despite some crazy turnovers that kept the Giants in the game. And of course, we're going to talk about Dallas losing to the Miami Dolphins. So for you guys tuning in and checking this out, like, subscribe. Thank you guys for showing up, and let's get the content started. All right. So obviously, like, the biggest game that we could talk about is the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. The Dallas Cowboys came into that game with the hopes of keeping their hold on the NFC East with the reeling Eagles team that lost 3 straight games. But obviously, we saw that didn't come into fruition, as the Miami Dolphins were just able to do what a lot of teams are able to do versus the Dallas Cowboys, which is run the ball and set up off that play action and take advantage of those undersized linebackers in the box. And that's exactly what they did. Now, a close game, that Dallas defense kept it, as they only lost by 2 points, 22-20. But what this does is it allowed the Philadelphia Eagles to take back that number 2, number 3 seed, and also take back the lead in the NFC East that they were able to capitalize off of, winning yesterday's game versus the New York Giants again, which we can say that the Eagles definitely were trying to give that game away, especially in the third quarter when we spotted these guys 15 points. But that's a whole other issue that we're going to get into, right? So, and then of course, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are now reeling as they're a 9-6. Patrick Mahomes hasn't lost 6 games since he came into the league, so it's definitely very concerning. Definitely with the number of drops this wide receiver corps for the Kansas City Chiefs has leading the league, and I think they're about to break records. So, but I don't see that those other teams in the AFC West being a threat to the Kansas City Chiefs, just barring any setbacks, what have you. Because if you take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs' next few games, they got to play Cincinnati without Joe Burrow, which I think is a winnable game, but you never know, just because that Bengals defense is good at keeping this team in games, even when Jake Browning isn't playing his best. And right now, Jake Browning is playing his best football right now. Opening up the conversation, is Joe Burrow a system QB? Just because a quarterback that's beneath him is performing just as well in this offense. Because if y'all remember, Joe Burrow in his season at 5-5, and now you have him at 8-7. So essentially, Jake Browning has kept this team in playoff contention, opening up that conversation. But as far as Cincinnati, I don't think they'll be able to hold off a lot of these teams that have the same record, like the Buffalo Bills. I mean, we can go into the AFC playoff picture later in this segment here. So, but I don't see the Broncos, I don't see the Las Vegas Raiders, and I definitely don't see the Chargers making a real threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in that division. Now, the AFC South, we can talk about the AFC South. The AFC South at this point is up for grabs, just because you have Jacksonville with their numerous struggles. Trevor Lawrence is in and out of the lineup with injuries. Last week, he left the game versus Tampa Bay, that shutout game at Tampa Bay, with a shoulder injury. So we don't really know what the status of his play is on that. but the next two games are both division games. So we can't really say who's going to win that because Jacksonville, they have to play Tennessee at home, which is not going to be an easy game. And then they got to go to Indy, who's looking like the best team in that division, despite having Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Um, and then you have Houston with all their injuries. When Tank Dell went out for the season for the Houston Texans, that kind of changed up their offense just because now you don't have that dynamic weapon that can stretch the offense. And then you got Noah Brown being injured with that hamstring, and CJ Stroud. We don't know what his status is on that concussion protocol that he took against the New York Jets. And then Indianapolis just got their asses beat by the Atlanta Falcons, who I guess are fighting for a spot in the NFC playoff picture, despite Tampa Bay. And we're going to talk about Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay is playing some of their best football, and Baker Mayfield has been answering a lot of questions. But as far as Indianapolis, I think they have the most complete team in that AFC South as far as the quarterback who has experience being a starting quarterback. And then you got Michael Pittman, Mo Alley Cox. They still have Jonathan Taylor. They still have a really good running game. Their offensive line is still one of the best in the league. So I believe that this AFC South is up for grabs, and it likely could go to Indianapolis just because of the struggles of Jacksonville and the injuries with Houston. But more to come because, again, anything can happen on any given Sunday. And Houston's next two games are versus Carolina. No. Houston, yeah. So Houston's games are versus the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're playing in Indianapolis. So not both not easy games. So we really don't know who's going to come out this AFC South because Indianapolis, they have to play Carolina, which is the easy game. I think that'll be a gimme game. And then their last game of the year is at Tennessee, a division game. So whoever's going to come out this AFC South is definitely going to take control of that 7th seed in the AFC. And let me show y'all a recent playoff bracket from last week. This is not the updated playoff scope. So if you look at this, right, it's Jacksonville holding on to that 4th spot because they're the lead in their division. And then you look at Indianapolis, who's that wild card spot. So two teams can potentially come out the AFC South, barring any resurgence of Denver and those other 8 and 7 teams, 7-8 teams in the AFC. That's really competitive right now. Now looking at the AFC North, obviously we know that Lamar Jackson is going to take that division, just barring any injuries on that team, which they have been plagued with all year. Lamar Jackson is really looking like the MVP, especially after last night's shellacking of the 49ers at the 49ers. So if there was any question about who the MVP is right now, because I thought it was going to be Brock Purdy, but after last night, you can clearly make the case that Cam Newton was right about quarterbacks like Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy, guys who don't really change the game like that, guys who were able to, get you along the way for a little bit. But when we seen Brock Purdy get knocked out the game because of his performance, 4 interceptions, and to bring in Sam Darnold and have him play just as well in the same offense, I think Brock Purdy's MVP conversation has taken a major hit. I think a lot of fans can agree with that. But as far as the AFC North, Baltimore with their 12 wins can easily wrap up this division. Now, a lot of people are going to be watching this game coming up this weekend versus the Miami Dolphins at home, a game that will not be easy. The Miami Dolphins appear to be on a hot streak right now. They beat Dallas at home, and then now they got to go on the road versus Baltimore at Baltimore, which is not going to be an easy game. Baltimore has had the Miami Dolphins number for the past couple years. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this game unfolds. Will Tua be able to continue to make his MVP conversation? Will Tyreek Hill get closer to his 2,000-yard mark? Probably not. You're talking about one of the premier defenses in the NFL in the Baltimore Ravens. Uh, and then they're also still battling for the number one seed that they have to win now. And Baltimore's schedule is not as easy, just like the Miami Dolphins schedule, because the Baltimore Ravens, they have to play the Dolphins at home, and then they have to go on the road and play Pittsburgh, who's trying to get that like get their eighth, ninth win to help Mike Tomlin keep his winning streak alive. Well, winning record streak alive, because as we know, Mike Tomlin is known for having these winning records in the regular season, despite not really doing much in the postseason. In the AFC East, it's the same scenario as the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North. It's really their division to win. Now the Buffalo Bills are playing some really good football, and what I know about Buffalo is that they play the Miami Dolphins at home, and they gotta play New England, so they're playing two division games. So Miami Dolphins, this is their division to win if they can hold off the Buffalo Bills at 9-6. Now, what Miami can do to keep these guys off their tail is the Dolphins have to win at least one of the next two games. So if the Dolphins were to drop a game to Baltimore, they have to win at Buffalo at home. So, but if they lose to Baltimore on the road, they have to win against Buffalo at home. So it's not gonna be super easy right now for the Miami Dolphins. Um, for the last two games of the season, trying to battle for that number one seed in the AFC, because obviously we know Kansas City is not gonna be in contention for that any longer after their performances this season and their record at 9-6. There's just no way they're going to catch up with the Dolphins or the Baltimore Ravens. So, looking at the AFC right now, if you're asking me who's going to take the AFC playoff picture, it's going to be Baltimore at that number one, Miami at that number two, Kansas City, barring any delays, they're going to take that number three seed. Um, Cleveland's looking real good right now. Cleveland, their next two games are going to be not easy either, because they have to play the Jets at home, and then they have to go on the road to Cincinnati. So again, like this AFC is going to be super competitive. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes out this AFC. Well, we know who's going to come out the AFC at the 1 and 2, but those other 5 spots, we just don't know because of the strength of schedule of all these guys that I just named. So, as far as the NFC goes, we know San Francisco took an L last night, dropping their record to 11-4, opened up a chance. And if you watch my previous videos, you know I said that the Philadelphia Eagles have a very good chance at controlling their destiny if we play our games. And again, let's take a look at our schedule for the NFC competitors, right? So the Eagles, we won at the Giants. I mean, we won at home versus the Giants, and now we have to play at home versus the Cardinals, a team that's definitely going to try to spoil us. But that all depends on the Cardinals management if they even want to continue to play winning football. Are they going to sit Kyler Murray knowing that they're trying to get another quarterback? Let me read these comments again. Thank you guys for showing up, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Lindoria Streams, what's up, bro? You're my favorite Eagle content creator. Hey, man, thanks, man. Like, I tried my best, seriously. Thank you so much. But again, we have the Eagles here playing the Cardinals at home, which is not going to be an easy game, because again, if you're an Eagles fan, you have nightmares about 2008 when the Cardinals knocked us out of the NFC Championship game, ruining our chance to play Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. And ever since then, it's just been a war with the Cardinals, who are definitely wanting to spoil our chances at getting a number one seed. So that's not going to be easy. So that's not going to be an easy game. And then the Eagles have to go to MetLife, something that I've been talking about that I really don't want to happen, just because of all the injuries that have been happening at MetLife. So if we have a chance to win a game against the Cardinals, and we know that number one seed is out of reach, and Dallas can drop their game or two, the Eagles can have a very good chance of just securing that number two seed, which is not going to be a bad thing. And we're going to talk about that path if the Eagles are definitely taking that path with the number 2 seed. But right now, um, like our destiny's up in the air right now because the 49ers have to go on the road and play the Commanders, which is probably going to be an easy game for them. Like, not going to lie, just because the Commanders are just so trash and they've already benched Sam Howell. So the Commanders are pretty much like looking at the offseason at this point. So um, I don't I don't see the 49ers losing that game, but the 49ers do have to play the Rams at home at their last game of the year, and the Rams are still fighting for a playoff spot. And we know how hot the Rams are looking. Matthew Stafford is top 10 in pretty much major statistical categories these past few weeks. Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp and Tutu Atwell and Kyron Williams are really starting to show like why the Rams value them so much in this franchise. So it's definitely going to be an interesting 2 weeks, like looking at the 49ers, just because the main game that we're going to look at for the 49ers is this Rams game right here. Because if they're able to drop this game right here versus the Rams and the Eagles are able to win out, we would have, that number 1 seed just based off record alone. So if you're an Eagles fan, you're not even watching the Commanders game. You're watching to see what they're going to do against their division rival, the Rams. And we're also going to be looking at the Cowboys versus the Lions at home because we know that the Cowboys have been on a losing streak versus the Bills and the Dolphins, and now they got to come home and play the Lions, which are not going to be easy. Which is not going to be easy game because the Lions right now, like they're in a state of belief in their coaching staff, in themselves, in the players on that roster, and the fact that they won their division, something that they haven't done in 30 years since I've been alive, right? You know what I'm saying? So they're coming into this game with a lot of energy, and we don't know the state of Dallas coming into this game after that loss versus Miami, which they feel is a lot of controversy, by the referees, some calls that weren't called, whatever. Dallas can't complain about no kind of calls that didn't go for them when they literally were saved by the refs on certain drives in key games. And we're not going to go in that right now. But pretty much the whole point of this is that the Eagles can still control their destiny, uh, like like just within the NFC East, just because of their strength of schedule and the ease of their schedule compared to what the Cowboys have to do, because they have to play the Lions at home, which is not going to be easy. And then they have to play the Commanders the last game of the year. And we know what happened last year. Sam Howell's rookie debut against the Cowboys in the last game of the year, good night, Irene. So the Cowboys don't have it easy right now. They could drop one of these games and easily fall down and keep that fifth seed in the playoffs. Uh, so right, so again, the Eagles just control their destiny. And looking at the NFC right now, it's a really competitive NFC. And I was talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers earlier, who are playing some of their best football. Baker Mayfield has answered a lot of questions for Tampa Bay, whether he can be that franchise quarterback for this team for the foreseeable future post Tom Brady. The man has been throwing 2, 3, 4 touchdowns these past 2 games. He's 9 touchdowns, like 1 interception these last 3 games. Now, a lot of people are going to talk about the weapons, but if he's using these weapons to his advantage to advance his team to a goal that's bigger than themselves, then I say Baker Mayfield is well deserving of that job. I think that he found his nest in Tampa Bay, a really nice area this time of year. So Tampa Bay, they can easily lock up their division in the NFC South. As their next 2 games are versus New Orleans, which I think they can win because that game is in Tampa Bay, and then they got to go to Carolina, which is going to be a cakewalk for them because Carolina can't win a damn thing. They're trying to get the number 1 pick in the draft. So I'm sure Carolina is going to rest their starters or whatever the fuck they're going to do, because they're not trying to ruin their draft spot versus the Cardinals. And again, we're going to get deeper into this later into the week, just because we don't know what the mentality of the Arizona Cardinals is at this point. We don't know the injuries they have. They haven't dropped the injury report. There isn't a lot of news right now, like just because because it's Boxing Day after Christmas. So like we probably like won't know much until Wednesday or Thursday about the Cardinals. But looking at that, Carolina's not going to do much of thing. And again, Baker Mayfield has answered a lot of questions as to whether he can be a franchise quarterback just based off his play like these last 3 weeks. I don't see Atlanta or New Orleans catching up to them in that regard, just looking at their next 2 games. So the NFC is really competitive right now. And just looking at the NFC West, obviously the 49ers are going to take that, but the Rams are looking like they're trying to take that wild card spot along with the Seattle Seahawks. And if the playoff picture were to start today, here's what it would look like. Now, I know it's a little bit distorted just because this was updated last week, but just looking at this playoff bracket, right? We know that the number 1 seed in the NFC right now is San Francisco. They would have that first round bye. But if we were to rearrange this, Philadelphia has the number 2 seed. So if the playoffs were to start today, the Philadelphia Eagles would have to play the Seattle Seahawks, which is not going to be an easy game. I personally do not want to play Seattle the first playoff game, especially if it's on the road, again, just because the Philadelphia Eagles have not beat the Seattle Seahawks in 15 years. And we saw what happened in that last fiasco with Drew Lock and 3/4 of their secondary missing. So I don't want to see Seattle with a fully loaded roster. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of Eagles fans don't want to see that. But if you take a look at the 3 seed, which is Dallas, Dallas would have to go to Los Angeles. And I don't think they want to see LA just because of how hot they're playing right now. Matthew Stafford is getting the ball out of his hands, like the top 5 fastest in the past 3 weeks. So and then you're talking about a team that is very susceptible to the run, and we know how ingenious Sean McVay is like when it comes to offensive game planning. So I don't think Dallas wants to see the LA Rams just as much as the Philadelphia Eagles don't want to see Seattle. But I'm very excited about Tampa Bay, like just because like they play that 5th seed, who is probably going to be who's a 5th seed right now. Let me take a look at that. Who's the 5th seed right now in the NFC? Give me take a look at that. The 5th seed in the NFC is wow, okay. So Dallas is that 5th seed. So Tampa Bay will be playing Dallas like that. Like I think that would be a rematch. A lot of Tampa Bay fans would love to see just because of what happened. You know, Dallas beating up a 50,000-year-old Tom Brady. So if the playoffs would happen today, Tampa Bay would have to go play Dallas. And then that number 3 seed Detroit would have to go play the LA Rams. Sorry for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, like I'm trying to go off the head here because they didn't update the bracket until last night. So I have the bracket from last week. But again, like using that, the Eagles would have to play Seattle. The number 3 seed in Detroit, they would have to play the Los Angeles Rams. And Dallas, that number 5 seed, they would have to play the 4 seed in Tampa Bay. So this is what the playoff picture like is going to look like as far as NFC. And then when you go up to the AFC side, you're talking about. Hold on, let me find my mouse here. This mouse always gives me a lot of trouble, guys. Hold on. What's going on? Okay, there we go. Okay. Finally get okay. So looking at the AFC playoff picture over here, obviously we know that Baltimore has that number 1 seed, so they would get that first round bye. The number 2 seed Dolphins, they would go into Indianapolis and play them. I think that would be a good win for the Miami Dolphins just because they are better than the Indianapolis Colts in like all facets. You know, they have the better quarterback. They have the better wide receiver group. They have, well, I don't know about offensive line, but they have the better run game. They have the better defense. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the Dolphins could easily advance and play whoever comes out of this Kansas City Buffalo game, because, again, it's the number 3 seed versus the 6 seed. And I think a lot of people would be really watching this game right here just because, like, every year we see some kind of matchup between Kansas City and Buffalo, And let me take a look at these comments again. Thank you guys for showing up, showing out for me. Again, like, subscribe, get content out there. Let's read the comments. Let's see. Lindoria streams. Cardinals play us, Cowboys super hard each year too. I agree with that, Lindoria. I think it's residual spite from when they were in the NFC East and getting smacked every year in division games. Yes, I do agree with that. Lindoria streams is always something of a mess just when it comes to the Cardinals and the Cowboys. Hey, Dead Blacks. Hey, what's going on, my boy? Thank you for showing up. So, when we take a look at this playoff bracket, it's going to be Kansas City and Buffalo. If the playoffs were to start today, a lot of people would be taking that game more seriously than these other two, because I don't think a lot of people would be really interested in this Dolphins Colts game, like just because you expect the Dolphins to do crazy work on the Indianapolis Colts. And then Jacksonville and Cleveland, I think that game is just going to put a lot of people to sleep, just because you have an old Joe Flacco, a slow-paced offense, versus Jacksonville, who you don't really know what you're going to get out of. Because, again, like you're talking about Trevor Lawrence, who's been in and out of the lineup. The defense has been getting up a lot of points, as we saw yesterday when they played Tampa Bay. In Tampa Bay, they gave up 27 points, made Baker Mayfield an MVP candidate, even though it's probably impossible at this point, right? So taking a look at this, this is what the AFC playoff picture would look like if it were to start today. I'm curious to hear you got. I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts and comments on who do you think would come out this first round of the AFC and who's your AFC pick. But for me personally, if the playoffs were to start today, I think that Cleveland would beat Jacksonville. Cleveland would go to play their division rival in Baltimore. That would be a really good game. Lamar Jackson would definitely have a chance to state his to further solidify his MVP case if Cleveland were to go into that second round, play them. Joe Flacco, we know he is historically undefeated in the playoffs, even though we've only seen him do it one time. But history can always be revised, right? And then Kansas City and Buffalo, I don't know. I'll probably have to take Buffalo in this one, just because we know that Kansas City is struggling right now at the wide receiver position, like just with the mini drops. You can't win a playoff game if your only weapon is your tight end. And I know a lot of people are going to probably talk about Isaiah Pacheco and Rashid Rice, but one of those guys is really unproven. We know what Isaiah Pacheco brings as far as energy, like to that Kansas City team, but I don't think it'll be enough to offset Buffalo, who's really starting to come alive, like with their run game, with the combination of James Cook and the splash of Josh Allen here and there. So you would essentially have Buffalo versus Miami. So you would have two division games in this second round if the playoffs were to start today. Baltimore versus Cleveland and Miami versus Buffalo. So I can't tell you who's going to come out that second round, just because, again, they're both division rivals, and we know that divisions can pan out either way. But as far as Tampa Bay and Dallas, I mean, I would have to take Dallas in that one, just because, I mean, I like Tampa Bay, I like what they can do, but if you can't run the ball on Dallas efficiently, you don't really have a good chance of winning. And I like the wide receiving core they have, but can that offensive line for Tampa Bay hold up against that Dallas front to give Baker Mayfield enough time to scan the field and get his, and get these passes off to his dynamic weapons? So Dallas could potentially win this game and go into San Fran and give them another rematch for the fourth time in 4 years, because we know what San Francisco did the year before Brock Purdy. We know what they did with Brock Purdy last year, and we know what Brock Purdy did to them this year. So this would be the fourth consecutive game between Dallas and San Francisco, and I don't see Dallas beating San Francisco. I know what happened to San Francisco last night, but that was just because Baltimore is a very physical team. Lamar Jackson is 20-1 versus NFC teams since he came into the league. So if Dallas were to go into San Francisco, I don't think it would be any different because San Francisco can run the ball and they have a MVP at running back in Christian McCaffrey. I don't see Dallas doing much to halt that and also getting to Brock Purdy because again, it's a two-edged sword. Either you're going to stop the run and make Brock Purdy go through his progressions, or you're going to get to Brock Purdy to where he has to get it out to the flats to those guys like behind the line of scrimmage, which we know he's really good at according to Pro Football Focus. Like he's one of the best passers behind the line of scrimmage. So if Dallas is able to get pressure on him, will it be enough because he's still able to get it out to the flat to Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, who are really good in yards after catch. But as far as the number 3 seed in the NFC, let me take a look at that. In the NFC, the Detroit Lions versus the LA Rams. Now, this would be a really good game. I think a lot of people would watch this one just because it's Jared Goff's return to a team that let him go, a team that didn't really believe in him and got Matthew Stafford. So this would be a really good game between the Detroit Lions and the LA Rams. I think a lot of people would watch that. And as a matter of fact, like I personally think the NFC is going to be a lot more exciting in the first round than the AFC, just because again, like you have these rematches, Tampa Bay and Dallas, Detroit and LA Rams, and then the number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Seattle Seahawks. So it's going to be a lot of really good competition in the first round on the NFC side. But obviously, I got Philly over the Seattle Seahawks after 15 years. Maybe we break our 15-year curse and beat these guys in the first round, advance, and then Detroit, they can possibly get over the LA Rams just because again they but I don't know about this team though because the Detroit Lions and the LA Rams are both evenly matched. They both have a quarterback that is just as good as the other one. Both have been in Super Bowls. You know what I'm saying? The wide receiving group with Puka and Cooper are just as good as Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. But the run game is going to like make a difference because the Detroit Lions can run the ball on anybody with Jahmyr Gibbs, and that other guy whose name I can't just think of right now, and I had his name on top of my head. But the Detroit Lions are a better run team than the LA Rams with Kyren Williams. So I think the Detroit Lions, if they can get their run game established, they can make life a living hell for that Rams defense. So Detroit could they could sneak past the LA Rams and see us in the second round. So it would be the Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles, something I think a lot of fans would love to see in the second round. Now, this is where it gets not as exciting as the AFC because, again, you got division rivals in the AFC on the in the second round versus San Francisco and Dallas, which I think San Francisco is going to make some work on Dallas, and then like Detroit and Philly. I think that's going to be a really good game. That's really going to see if we're ready, if we're really Super Bowl contenders or not. You know, so again, I'm curious to hear like what you guys think about that, and you know, like of this playoff bracket, who do you think would win in the wild card round on both sides? Who do you think would advance to the championships for the AFC and the NFC? Just leave your thoughts in the comments about that. But as far as me, you're asking me, and if you wanted me to give an unbiased opinion, I think that it would be San Francisco versus versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, I'm gonna say it, man. I'm gonna say that like it's gonna be a really good game versus Detroit. that's gonna come down to a field goal by Jake the Make Elliott, and that's gonna like just propel us with momentum into the NFC Championship game versus the San Francisco 49ers, and that'll allow us to quell these rumors talking about if Brock Purdy was there last year, like he would have beat us. I think that Eagles fans will love the rematch versus the San Francisco 49ers, like just to shut these guys up. And then on this side, Baltimore versus Cleveland. I think Baltimore can run through these guys, like just because they have the better quarterback, they have the better team. And Miami and Buffalo. I mean, that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough because Buffalo is really, really, really serious about like getting back to the AFC conference game because right now they have a lot of questions. If they don't get to the AFC conference game this year, what is their team going to look like in the offseason? Are they wanting to get rid of Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier and just start a whole new coaching staff, which would be very dumb because if something is working, why would you want to fix it? Like don't fix what's not broken. So I got Baltimore and Baltimore, and I'm gonna say Baltimore and Miami. I'm gonna say Baltimore in Miami because my dog is a Dolphins fan, so I would love to see Baltimore in Miami. That would be a really good game because you have a high-powered offense versus a really good defense in Baltimore, and then you got a pretty good defense that can pose some problems for that Baltimore offense. Even with the absence of Jalen Phillips on that Miami defensive front. So we got a lot of good games coming up in these next 2 weeks. Again, the NFC is really competitive, and if you're asking me, I think this is going to be your official NFC playoff bracket, just because when you look at the other teams that are in the hunt in the in the NFC. I don't see nobody in the NFC South taking that spot away from Tampa Bay. I don't see nobody in the NFC North usurping the Detroit Lions for that spot. The Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, the Eagles would have to win out in order to take the NFC East and keep that number 2 seed because I don't see, barring that last game with LA Rams, I don't see the San Francisco 49ers giving up that 1 seed. But again, it's any given Sunday. So we'll see, right? The Dallas Cowboys, I think they're going to keep that number 5 seed just because, I mean, even if they were to drop one to the Detroit Lions, they still got to play the Commanders, who just benched Sam Howell. So, I mean, at best, like they can go 11-6 to end the season. Neither the 6 or 7 seed will be good enough to usurp that. So I think what you're seeing right now on this current playoff bracket for the NFC is what's going to be in the playoffs. Now, as far as the AFC, that's still up in the air because outside of that 1 and 2 spot, you don't really know who's going to take that because Kansas City is reeling. Their next game is versus Cincinnati, a team without Joe Burrow, and the LA Chargers. So, I mean, again, Kansas City, they're not looking like the team they have been the past couple of years. So I don't know. If they can hold on to that number 3 seed. Jacksonville, don't know if they're going to hold on to that. Indianapolis might take that 4 seed, and Jacksonville might drop down to the 7. So we really don't know what the AFC is going to look like in the next couple weeks outside of that number 1 and 2 seed. But I can promise you $1 to a leaf that the NFC playoff picture is going to look like exactly what it's looking like right now. San Francisco is probably going to hold on to that number 1 seed, barring any delays during that last game versus the LA Rams at home. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think think in the comments about that. But outside of the teams in the hunt, those hunt teams, let's take a look at that. The Vikings, nobody really believes in the Vikings like that. They have Nick Mullins as their starting quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons, I don't think they're going to win out like that. The Green Bay Packers, I think they've had a terrific season, but I don't see them doing much. The New Orleans Saints, I don't think they're going to beat Tampa Bay at home, barring any setbacks like that, because again, it is a division game between Tampa Bay and the New Orleans Saints. So, like when you talk about the teams in the hunt, I don't think neither of those teams are good enough to crawl their way back and take that 6 and 7 seed. So this is what the NFC playoff picture is going to look like. The AFC, we're going to have to go with God on that one and hope no setbacks happen on Saturday and Sunday, because I think Saturday and Sunday are really going to tell us who's going to come out the AFC in those spots 3 to 7. So I think that's all content that we have today. Oh yes, in talking about the Eagles yesterday, the Eagles they looked really good yesterday. The offense looked a lot better, especially on that last drive where we saw a lot more of the pistol formation and the uses of DeAndre Swift. 20 carries for 92 yards. Now, a lot of people were saying, Jalen Hurts, did he steal a lot of those rushing touchdowns from DeAndre Swift? Because if we take a look at the amount of rushing touchdowns that Jalen Hurts has, a lot of those rushing touchdowns could have been given to DeAndre Swift. Now, knowing Howie Roseman and how cheap he can be, not going to go into why, not going to use his demographic. That's why he's cheap. But knowing Howie Roseman, he's probably trying to keep DeAndre Swift under that threshold, because if DeAndre Swift were to have 1,000-yard season with 10 plus touchdowns, like, you have to give him a contract. And maybe the Philadelphia Eagles aren't wanting to give a running back a long-term deal like that, just because maybe they see something in the draft that we don't right now. Because teams do this a lot. If you look at the Atlanta Falcons and how they use Bijan Robinson, that they don't give him the carries that he's supposed to get over Tyler Algier, because they want to keep his numbers like below that threshold to where like they don't have to pay him a lot of money. Whether it's smart or not is up for debate, but whether it's a good business decision or not, like, it's up for debate. But this is just how it is in the NFL. It's still a business. It's still a business at the end of the day, where owners and GMs are wanting to pay their players like the least amount of money as possible, which is why, like, especially at that running back position. So we'll see. But I can make the argument that Jalen Hurts probably has stolen some rushing TDs from DeAndre Swift. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. I like the Eagles defense yesterday. They only gave up 17 points. 7 of those points came off a fumbled kickoff, and the other 7 came off a blown coverage that just doesn't happen by Reed Blankenship, allowing Darius Slayton to get behind him. Now I like the ascension of Kelly Ringo and Shaq Leonard. Shaq Leonard came out that game 7 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 tackles for loss. And we hear him in the post game talking about he still has a lot to prove. He wants to prove that he can still play in this league. And I still think he can. Like back surgery or not. And I know y'all watch my reaction to Cowboys content, like creators saying that the back just doesn't get better. And I showed y'all just with a simple Google search that the back can get better. And looking at Shaq Leonard, he's only gotten better as the games have progressed. And I think that Shaq Leonard is going to make a lot of difference for us in these playoffs, especially when we get our roster back. Because now you're talking about Avonte Maddox coming back in the lineup, a guy that we really need in that slot corner. Maybe you can put Avonte Maddox on the outside and move Bradbury, or just bench Bradbury. You know what I'm saying? And give the other young guys a chance, like Avonte Maddox and whoever young guy you want to put in there. Eli Ricks, Kelly Ringo, Sidney Brown, doesn't matter. Just don't have Sam Bradbury, because Sam Bradbury will be our downfall. Because in the clutch, these offenses in the playoffs are going to target Sam Bradbury, one of the worst corners in the league. Like, he reminds me of Nolan Carroll. Jesus Christ, man. So now the pressure is still going to have to get there for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now we still are fourth most in sacks, but I mean, the pressure is just not getting there consistently like it was last year. And maybe that's just still the evolution of Matt Patricia's defense. Maybe he'll actually apply some stunts, instead of having these guys just go like, I'm saying, like straight up the field all the time. Like allow these guys to allow Hassan Reddick to go into the A gap sometime. Allow Jalen Carter to play DN. Like I know there were a lot of times that Fletcher Cox would play DN, and he got some meaningful snaps. Fletcher Cox at defensive end, he got enough pressure on Geno Smith to where like he underthrew a wide open tight end on the out route. So I'm very curious to see how this defense is going to evolve as we get further to the postseason this year. And again, like I told y'all, like the NFC playoff bracket. If the NFC playoffs were to start today, we would obviously have to play the Seattle Seahawks or the Seattle Seahawks or the LA Rams. Two games that I don't think the Eagles just want to play, like just because of the inefficiencies that we have on the defensive side of the ball. We still have a lot of questions on offense, and the problems that the LA Rams pose to the Eagles in the playoffs is the fact that they can pass the ball really well, and they have an offense that's engineered by a guy who's really good at calling offensive plays in Sean McVay. So if you're asking me, like, do I want the Eagles to play the LA Rams in the playoffs? No. I would much rather play the Seattle Seahawks and try to break a 15-year curse than go into a game that I feel like we just are at a more disadvantage of because of the passing attack of the LA Rams compared to the passing attack of the Seattle Seahawks. So let me know what you guys think about that. But again, slow down. Jesus Christ. I'm so excited about this. I just can't contain myself. So looking at this playoff bracket again. So if you look at the number 2 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles, we would have to go into Seattle and play them. I don't want to play Seattle, even though I much rather play Seattle than the LA Rams, just because we already have a feeling of what Seattle is going to do. Their offense is more like placated on setting up the run and hitting you with the pass, which I feel like the Eagles are better at because the LA Rams, they don't have to run the ball to beat you. They have Tyler Higbee. They have Puka Nacua. They have Cooper Kupp. You know what I'm saying? So I'm more scared of that dynamic three than the dynamic three that Seattle has. I know a lot of people are probably going to talk about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and JSN, but when you look at how the offenses are structured, I'm more confident in playing the Seattle Seahawks, who don't have a really good offensive play caller like that, and Shane Waldron versus Sean McVay in LA. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. And if you're an Eagles fan right now in the comments, and again, thank you guys for showing up, who would you rather play in the playoffs? Would you rather play the LA Rams or would you rather play the Seattle Seahawks? My vote of confidence is the Seattle Seahawks, since we've already seen them. We've already know what they're going to do. So, only makes sense. It only makes sense. But guys, I'm about to get out of here. There's not really much content right now, but we do have more content on the way because there's more developing news around the NFL that we're going to talk about and how it could impact the playoff picture. So again, like, subscribe, get content out there. Thanks for showing up, guys, and we're out here.